Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media. I'm your host, Tyler Bennett, here with you once again. Before we get into it, happy belated Father's Day to everybody out there. This comes out June 22nd, June 21st, Sunday. It's Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to everyone out there. It's episode 7, part number 2. In part 1, you would have heard from Nate Ooks forward Keelan Dobish. And in part number 2, right now, we're going to hear from Redeemer Royals women's basketball assistant coach, Pat Iavarone. Pat and I had a great chat. We recorded it Saturday, June 20th, so the day before Father's Day. And one thing that he really wanted to highlight was Redeemer as an academic institution. And being in the CCAA, people automatically assume college. But as he goes into, I'll let him go into further detail in a minute or two, but you can get your degree at Redeemer University. So it's university education with a college feel, if that makes sense. And then we started off with that, just letting him shine as much light on Redeemer as an academic institution and kind of what recruiting looks like now with no basketball until at least January, how important education plays in the recruiting process now with, like I said, no basketball. Nobody's playing. There's no leagues in the summer right now. You can't get out and recruit and watch games and see players and how they play. Pitching that academic piece is far more important now than it probably was just even last year, let alone in previous years. And then we switch gears and look at Redeemer as a women's program. The results haven't been there the last couple of years due to injuries, small roster sizes, what have you. We let Pat kind of dive into that as well and kind of give insight from his perspective, being on a two-person coaching staff up and until this coming season, which he'll explain as well, what the challenges have been for them to really build towards a winning program and what they're still working towards and what's ahead for the program. He gives a look at some returning players that are coming back, some of those who took on big roles this year that they probably didn't think they were going to be in, given injuries and whatever else. Plus, they look at some recruits they've announced so far, and he gives a bit of a teaser on one that is ahead. They're building something at Redeemer, and I've said it, I don't know how many episodes. Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't build a winning program overnight. Doesn't happen. Unless you're Carleton, who just reloads every year. That's it. But with that said, let's jump right in to episode 7, part 2 of the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media with Redeemer Royals women's basketball assistant coach, Pat Iavarone. Enjoy. All right, I'm now thrilled to be joined by Redeemer Royals women's basketball assistant coach, Pat Iavarone. That was take 2. Messed up the first time. This time, 2 for 2. Coach, how are things on your end?
Things are good. It's a little different with COVID going on, but make it work as we go.
Yeah, it's nice to see things slowly start to open up, but at the same time, that I'm worried about that second wave coming through, and I don't want to go backwards. So hopefully we stay trending the way we are, but I think we're far from what we used to know as normal. I don't think we'll ever go back.
No, I agree completely, and just hoping it doesn't take too much of a toll, especially on the academic side of things, and because that's where we're affected most, I think. I mean, jobs are always going to be there, but to take away that face-to-face interaction with students and teachers, I think that's the real shame in all of it.
You see a lot of students thrive on that in-person learning, and with a lot of schools going that online route for at least the fall, some schools going full year next year online, it's going to be tough. I think, like you said, the academic side of it is the side that kind of it's flown under the radar a bit. Nobody's really talked about the effects it has on students for next year. This year was interesting being kind of thrown into it, but it's it's going to be tough for students, I think, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the first year students where for they have the biggest transition point, whereas a lot of the other students that have been there 2-3 years now, that they've already kind of gone through that online side of things a little bit. So for them, it's not going to be too bad. But I mean, there's also some of those programs that you need to be in the classroom, you need to be in the labs, or else you're not really getting that hands-on experience you need.
And that's kind of where it gets interesting too. You have the labs where I think most schools are running those in person. I think for the most part, there might be some that aren't at all. So you do a lab in school, then everything else is online. Heaven forbid you accept an offer to a school out of town. Do you move hours away for one lab a week and everything else is online? Or do you switch your course altogether? I think there's going to be a lot of those questions being asked in the next 3-4 weeks to gear up for the summer. We might see a lot of schools have numbers drop because nobody wants to pay to live somewhere for 1 hour or 2 hours a week in a school.
Yep. It's hard not to agree with these things. I think we're going to see a lot of students deferring the year and just taking the year off just because of this, and see what happens for the following year.
It's definitely, and nobody can prepare for it because nobody's been through a global pandemic. But I feel for the students, like with all the leagues now canceling their summer, their fall sports, and OCAA's pushed back everything till at least January with basketball, volleyball, what have you. Everybody kind of looks at the athletic side of it first, and like we said, the academic kind of falls to the wayside. I think people don't really realize the level of impact that's going to have, because that goes top to bottom in the school. 4th year, 5th year, 1st year, everybody's impacted in some way. It's going to be interesting to see how many people defer, like you said. I think you might see schools a lot emptier lab-wise this year and online, just because they don't want to waste a year online.
We always hope that it doesn't happen, but I mean, this is one of those things, like you had said, we've never really been through something like this before in a global pandemic in many years. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's, at this point, it's inevitable, and you just got to kind of go with it as we learn more about COVID itself and the limitations that it's going to take, and the government giving the permissions to go forward.
Yeah, it's every day is something different. Every day changes. There's more cases one day, less cases the next, and you wonder, okay, well, on a day there's less cases, could we have opened schools? And then you see the next day it jumps, and they go, no, don't open it. Like, everything is so in flux and in transition. You have no idea what it's going to be like in 3 months. So I get why people make the decision. I get why people are angry with schools going online or fall sports canceled. But at the end of the day, like, the health and safety of the students, the student athletes, coaches, teachers, staff, whoever, goes far and beyond anything else.
Absolutely. And we preach that all the time. It's your academics are first, your health and your well-being is always second at Redeemer, and then basketball is next. Basketball can teach you a lot about yourself and put you in situations that you might not be comfortable with. But at the end of the day, once you graduate, it's those lessons that'll take you, and that education that's going to take you to your next step.
And that's why it's student athlete. Student comes first, athlete second. It's not, you're not an athlete student. Student first. Basketball comes after everything else above it.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of the things that we do preach at Redeemer as well. It's even with myself in growing up in sports with my parents and playing at Mohawk for the 4 years that I did, it's a privilege to play sports at the next level or at any level.
Yep.
At the end of the day, your academics are number one priority.
Yeah, I don't know how many times growing up it was you have a hockey practice or a hockey game or baseball or whatever, If your homework's not done, you're not going.
Yep.
And as much as I hated it at the time, I hated doing homework, and I always did, never liked it. No one really likes homework. But how many times they threaten no homework, no game? And it's true. It's a privilege to play. It's not a right at all. And student comes first. And it is what it is. We survived. I mean, I hated it at the time. Probably spited my parents more than I should have. But you look back and you thank them for it. I mean, it puts what's important first, and everything else falls into position afterwards.
Yeah.
One thing you wanted to touch on before we kind of get into the basketball side of it is the academic side at Redeemer and kind of the benefits of attending Redeemer as opposed to maybe another institution. So I'll kind of let you lead that a bit, if you will, kind of talk about what Redeemer's about, kind of some of the advantages or pros of attending an institution like Redeemer.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that everybody that's going to be watching this knows that I'm in no way trashing any educational institution out there.
No.
Some of our past recruits in the last couple of years that have decided to go to other schools, it's one of those things where you have to be happy for them. They made their very first big step decision on their future. So for everybody out there, I'm definitely not throwing any schools under the bus. If that program's right for you, you go to where you need to be.
Yep.
The main thing I wanted to point out about Redeemer is that it kind of ties into the athletic side of it. So we don't play in the U Sport League.
Yep.
So we're technically one of the only institutions within the CCAA that can offer you a degree program.
Okay.
We have 49 programs that are offered there, anywhere from science, business. So you can minor in coaching.
Oh, okay.
We have the education program, English, geography, list goes on.
Yep.
But it's just one of those things that not too many people realize, and because Redeemer is such a small private community, you don't know too much about it. And so this is a great opportunity to speak on that and kind of say, you might want to go to university and play sports, and you might be there, but you might not be just enough to make that cut at the U Sport level, and you still want to get that university degree and play. Redeemer is a great option. It's a very community-like at school. It's not your typical, 20,000 kids.
No.
It's maybe pushing that 800, 900 people. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but you get a lot more of that. The ratio from the students to teachers, and you get a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? You get a lot more guidance from the teachers, I think, in terms of because of that small classroom setting.
You get that college feel with smaller class sizes, more kind of personal relationships with your professors. Like you mentioned, like a school that's 15, 20,000 people, you're a face in a crowd of 500 people in a lecture hall. Half of those people will never have a relationship with their professor that they can feel comfortable going to their office hours and building that kind of camaraderie and see them in the hallways and you know them by name. Whereas Redeemer, like you said, 800-900 people, you get the university education with the small town community, everybody knows everybody type of feel.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, so that I'm going into my third year there coaching at Redeemer, and even in my first year, you walk through the halls and everyone's just saying, "Oh, hey, coach." I'm just going in line to get a coffee at Tim Hortons there. So like it's awesome, and the atmosphere at the basketball games is next to none.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely amazing. That small gym, and it's packed all the time. So it's one of those things where you almost take it for granted. But like I said, Redeemer is one of those institutions that they have a lot to offer. It's just too bad that it floats under the radar a lot of times.
I think because too, like they see university in the name, but then they play in the CCAA, you automatically assume it's colleges, like just college programs, like your 2-year diplomas and whatever. I don't think people realize, like you said, I think it was 49, you said, degree programs. I don't
Yep.
think you see CCAA and Redeemer, you automatically assume college, and you leave it at that. You look further and you can get your degree. And if you are from, like, if say you're a small town student athlete, you're intimidated by big school, thousands of people, being a face in 500 people lecture hall, look at Redeemer. You get that small town feel. You're not pushing yourself in to the deep end where you can't swim in a sea of people. You get that community feel, and you still get the exact same degree program at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's even when I was deciding out of high school, Redeemer was never on my own radar, but now that I'm more part closer and into that community there, it's almost a shame that even I didn't think of it as an option. I was always looking at those bigger schools, and I did, and I'm definitely not going to complain about how things ended up in my life. But
That's true.
Redeemer should definitely be an option for a lot of future students and current students, depending on what program you're going into, especially those transfers that after you graduate and you want to be a teacher. We do have that education program, and it's a really good program there that Redeemer has.
You mentioned the community too. Like, that gym, it's packed. And it's one thing to hear about it, and you hear through the OCAA that it gets loud. And I went up for the first time this year, the St. Clair, towards the end of the regular season, and I believe it was reading week. And I didn't have high expectations of people being there because people are going home, whatever, doing whatever they want. Packed. I was like, if you can fill your gym on a reading week, I think it was a weekend. I might be wrong. And like, you can't sit anywhere. The bleachers are full. Like, I sat on the floor for the men's game just because I didn't need a bleacher. That's insane. And the amount of people that stuck around after the games to talk to the athletes, talk to just other people in the community, like, people are setting up for volleyball afterwards. And I felt bad because the court's just packed with people trying to just socialize. And if that doesn't tell you how tight-knit the community is at Redeemer, I don't know what will.
It's actually my 4-year playing career there. Playing at Redeemer was probably my favorite place to play just because of that. And I was on the opposing side of it. Between Humber, playing at Humber was a close second just because of the competitiveness between Mohawk and Humber at the time.
Yep.
But I mean, like I said, you can't beat that atmosphere at Redeemer. I don't think it's possible. And I've played at a lot of schools. I've played at OCs. I've been to nationals a couple times as a player, and Redeemer is still one of my favorite places to watch or play a game.
It's got like the old school gym kind of feel, bleachers on one side, wood bleachers, cement wall on the other side. Like, if you're on that bench in the opposing team, good luck trying to hear, because the students get loud, they get into it, they get on you real quick. If you airball, do anything wrong, they are on you within seconds, and it's fantastic to watch. Like, I found myself watching the students half the time more than the game because they're just as entertaining, because they're on you. Parents are on you in a respectful way, obviously, not swearing at you or carrying on, but just trying to throw you off your game. And it's just one of the best places you could watch a game, probably in Canada, let alone the OCAA.
I agree, definitely. I think even as a coach, and luckily I'm the assistant coach, because sometimes I'll catch myself just watching those few people in the crowd, those hecklers, and they're just so funny and energetic. I mean, it's great. It's definitely a home court advantage, especially when the team's shooting opposite their bench. It's very hard to hear those play calls from your coach on the other side.
Yeah.
So it's what, like I said, it's great if we can get a few more athletes out, some more students,
Mm-hmm.
and just grow every program, volleyball, basketball, soccer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great place to be.
As you guys continue to recruit, obviously it's a bit different now with COVID and no in-person visits or what have you, and no basketball in the fall. How important is it for you and Jesse to leverage that academic side of things to try and get those recruits coming to Redeemer when there's no games to watch? You can't be on campus. It's a lot tougher to show them the atmosphere. So how important is it now for you guys to kind of leverage that university education in the college setting?
It's probably the most important pitch we can give right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are a program building,
Mm-hmm.
so it's one of those things where you can be part of the good build and be successful on and
Mm-hmm.
off the court.
Yep.
But I mean, at this point, if a lot of these schools that are going to be online only,
Mm-hmm.
you never know. With such a small population, Redeemer could possibly be one of the only schools that could potentially be open
Yep.
to having in class because of that size.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I don't know anything about that, so don't quote me on that, anybody.
No. Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where it could happen. Right?
Yeah.
We have the opportunity in the residences to like family, like there's basically 6, 7, 8 people in a dorm, and it's a townhouse style, so it is technically a family dwelling.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
that's true.
We could be able to swing something like that. I don't know what our president has in mind, but he's a smart guy, and I know if he can open those doors, he's definitely going to want to.
Because they put a release out, I think it was towards the middle or end of May, that said that they're still working towards a full in-person fall. And I wondered that with the smaller population as it is, smaller class sizes already, doesn't seem like it would be too much of a transition to adapt to where you meet the, I guess, for lack of a better term, criteria, if you will, or the regulations, and still run everything in the fall. I thought, and you look at everybody else kind of going online only, small population, again, nothing's been finalized, so nobody come at us and say, well, Pat and Tyler said everything's open in the fall. No, it's not. We're not saying that. We're not the president. But it doesn't seem like there would be too much to change, at least from an outside look, to have it ready for an in-person fall.
I think a lot of that will have to do with the financial side of that, and obviously that's something that the president and the board members are going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
We do very regularly have a lot of empty classrooms still in the building.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's going to come down to the finance part of it, and if it's feasible to open up classrooms and potentially hire on maybe more professors to make that work. So I guess if it fits the budget, we'll see how that goes.
There's a lot of moving pieces still. I don't think anything's firmly in place outside of schools online in the fall. Everything else is still moving budget-wise, auxiliary fees for athletics and student life, and there's so many variables that, again, we've never been through this before. I don't think anybody would have a playbook for a global pandemic and how to properly 100% be ready if this ever happens. I don't think anybody has that in their repertoire. If they do, kudos to you. Well prepared.
But the scary thought is, even if this happens again, I don't think you're still prepared.
No.
Like, if 25, 50 years, 100 years down the road, it's going to be something different.
Yep.
And it's going to be a completely different animal. You can't prepare for these things.
No. And even if a second wave of COVID hits, maybe it's 10 times worse than the first wave. So what you did now is irrelevant to what you do then, because, again, it's so different. And that could happen in a year, 2 years, 5 years, who knows when. It's just day by day at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly kind of what everybody's doing. Government, the institutions themselves, they're just taking it day by day and learning on the fly like everybody else is. There's there's nothing else you can really do except have a plan in place, and as things change, you adjust your plan accordingly.
And just hope for the best and expect the worst, and you'll end up meeting somewhere in the middle, and away we go.
Yep.
Looking at the basketball year for you, didn't go the best. You guys 2-16, finished 9th in the West, and the West is a beast on its own right. You guys had 9 girls on the roster. Just kind of get your thoughts on how you thought the season went as a whole, being your second year along with Jesse's second year.
We're obviously learning a lot about ourselves, as well as some of the athletes that we adopted in from previous years, and then as we're getting more athletes coming in, everything's changing on a regular basis, even daily. We're changing. We're thinking of new plans, and obviously with 9 girls, and then you lose a couple of injuries.
Yep.
It's very tough to put that time management perspective on some girls when you're almost forced to play 40 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Looking at the season, it definitely didn't go as we wanted it to, but there is still definitely a lot of positives to bring out of there. And we did bring in 2 transfer students from other universities in Jessica Angelini and Griffin Lackshane, and we thought they were going to be great pieces to add to Toby Brinkman in her final year. Things just didn't kind of go our way a lot of times, and then we thought we were finally about to break through at game against Fanshawe second semester at home, and we lose Toby and Griff to injuries that ended their seasons. So that was very tough. Put a lot more pressure on a lot of the other girls that might have not gotten as many minutes, but you think down the road it's not a bad thing either. Right. They got kind of thrown into the wolves, and they were able to learn a lot about themselves, and we learned a lot about them as well. So they got a lot of experience that they might have not had the chance to have.
Yeah, both years for you guys have been kind of riddled with injuries. Remember, towards the end of 2018-19, you had like 5 or 6 girls towards the end, and they're playing 40 minutes a game and just gassed. But you got to do what you can, and like you look at the roster, like with Griffin and Jess, 2 that you guys brought in, still believe probably one of the best backcourts in the OCAA. A little overshadowed by the record. I think that kind of forces people to overlook them a bit. But you look at Jess, second team All-Star in the West. Griffin had a fantastic year until she got hurt. 2 big pieces you can build around for years to come. But you summed it up: good, the bad, and the ugly. Is there anything else in there that we missed that kind of leads towards the good, the bad, or the ugly on the year, outside of the injuries and the All-Star? And
the bad and the ugly are kind of those injury problems that we dealt with, and having a small roster and the record that we were not hoping for. But there was just so much good that came out of that year with our girls. I mean, they just leave everything on the court for you. I don't believe there's a better group of girls out there to coach, and I might be biased on that topic, but all we ask of our team is you give it 100%, and you fall short on gas in that fourth quarter. But there's a lot to build on, and we saw a lot out of some other players. Larissa, she had a fantastic year. She had to step up big time. Kat Martin, I mean, she just came alive for us second semester after those 2 injuries, and we're really looking to build off of that momentum from some of the positive things that came from those players, and even players like Jess Wattell, who's in her first year. She took some big steps. Olivia Torrey, Sam Brinkman, even Lucy Brinkman. I mean, I can't leave anybody out there. Like, there's just everybody put in that effort to do what they can to help the team succeed. So in that aspect, I think good's an understatement. we have such a great group of girls that it's really hard to leave anybody out, and you can't leave anybody out because it's a team effort in the end.
That's one of the things that stood out to me too, from start to finish. When the results weren't going your way or girls went down with injury, no matter what happened, the girls fought and left everything they had on the floor every night. Continued to fight regardless of what was in front of them. Girls were put into roles that they probably didn't expect to have in their first year, like you mentioned, Jess, and they continued to fight regardless. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me from an outside perspective is just the grit and the toughness and the never wanting to give up. You can't teach that. You can't teach players to not give up. And the team never gave up. I think that's a huge testament to you guys as a staff and getting everybody to buy into what you guys are doing, because everybody fought regardless. And to me, it was a ton of fun to watch from an outside perspective.
And to be honest, we did not know what kind of outcome we were going to get from those girls. And it's very easy to just fold once the bat really starts coming down like that, when you're down to 7 girls, 6 girls some nights. But for the last 2 years, that's just been the reality at Redeemer. And we have, for whatever reason, we just have these girls that are just, they don't give up. And I don't know if it's anything that we're doing necessarily to push them. All we can say is we at Redeemer, and every coach, I'm sure, will say the same thing. You look after the best interests of your players, and you go through a wall for them, and they will go through a wall for you. And I feel that's exactly the only thing you can. That good thing is you build on that trust that you keep building every year after year with these girls, and it shows on the court.
And especially when you see like the upperclassmen or upperclass women running through that wall, having that trust with coaches, it's going to trickle down through the roster. So you're going to see girls like Toby in her 4th year running through a wall for the coaches. The first years are going to want to do the exact same thing. So
Absolutely,
you guys are having that effect on the team. The upper class student athletes are having that same effect, and it's just a trickle-down effect. And like you said, you guys will run through a wall for them. They're going to run through a wall for you, and then they're going to want to run through a wall for each other, because heaven forbid you're the one player on a 9-person roster that's not running through a wall for the other 8 teammates. You're on the outside real quick.
And you stick out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
It's unfortunate, but
yes.
I mean,
that is
with
true.
that small of a roster, you will be noticed real quick.
Yeah. And like you said, it's so easy for people to fold. It takes a lot. It takes a strong person mentally, physically, emotionally not to fold and to not give up and fight when the record is 2-16 at year's end. If injuries pile up, it's so easy to fold. And the girls didn't, flat out. Haven't folded in the last 2 years. I remember 2 years ago, Julia Pavlik, I think she had, I don't know how many games in the second half. She had at least like 37 minutes, or how many games she played all 40. Just left it all out there, to plain and simple.
I think the scariest part about that is, according to the OCA website, I could be off by a few minutes, but I think according to that, Julia Pavlik played all but 4 minutes that entire year. It was something crazy like that, and Julia was one of those players. She's being a 5th year when she came in.
Yeah.
She led by example, and that's exactly the kind of 5th year players and 4th year players you want on your roster. Someone that'll just leave everything out, just wearing your emotion on your sleeve and playing right from tip off to the final buzzer.
All but 4 minutes. If that's accurate and people did their subs, that's crazy. That is insane. And to stay healthy.
Obviously, there was a little give and take. She was obviously healthy enough to play. Was she hurting a lot of games?
Probably.
I can only imagine. She unfortunately got beat up a few games with her size, being a if we want to call it a limitation, because she used her size to her advantage better than most guards will ever do in the league.
Yep. Yeah, she
So,
didn't seem to have any fear in her.
no, she does not.
Didn't care how tall she was, how tall you were. She's going to come at you, and if she gets hurt, if she gets bumped, she gets bumped. If not, then, well, I'll keep doing it until I do.
We've been blessed, we'll say, with to have some players like Julia, like Toby, that'll just leave it out there for you. And even Kat this year, I think she took the biggest steps I've seen in a long time. Just her role. She obviously was going to have that major role with us anyways, but we didn't realize how big of a step she was going to have to take and the burden she was going to have to carry on her shoulders that second semester. And she just, I don't think she did it.
Just rose to the occasion, and the opportunity was presented to her, and she took it and ran. And you'll see a lot of people kind of stumble, maybe take it, maybe not. She grabbed a hold of it, took the reins, and took off. And now it's exciting to see what she's got in store next year.
I think it's her final year, so I'm hoping it's a big one for her. She definitely deserves it.
This is the thing for me with COVID, and I feel so bad for these final year athletes who put in all this work or are in a position like Kat was last year, seized a big role and ran with it, looking to build off the momentum, and now you got to wait another 4 months, which I feel for those athletes probably the most, because they want to end their career on a high note, and now you get maybe half a year, if at all. Those are the ones I feel for the most.
And I think this is where that deferral might come into play for a lot of students in their 4th, 5th year. Do they want to waste their eligibility, if it comes to that, on 8, 9 games and no shot at nationals?
Right.
So it'll be one of those things where, do they wait a year and sit it out and then play 2 years once this is said and done? Or do you stay, graduate, play your 8, 9 games, hope that there's a final 8 or final 4, however each conference is going to play it, and then you walk away from college sports after that?
Yeah, it's going to be, and it's a shame that the winter decisions don't come until October for some leagues. So everybody's kind of on a different timeline. It'll be interesting to see what happens if people take that deferral before the year starts. I don't know, it could be missing some big talent for a year, if there's any basketball, for sure.
And I think that's going to be the biggest thing, where even for those incoming, not even the 5th years or even just seniors in general, a lot of the talent coming in first year, they have that question to do as well. Like, do you just maybe go back for your 5th year of high school instead and sit it out? Potentially still the same thing, though, maybe not play, but it's going to be a factor for sure.
It'll be interesting to see, too, if people go back to high school for a 5th year, boost some marks. Do they stay with their school, or do they reopen their recruitment and look to go up to the next level again because marks were an issue? I think there's going to be some different things going on that I don't think we even can predict. Recruiting could get interesting.
I actually think next year's recruiting class might be a lot stronger because of this as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, if they defer, and let's say there's those players that were just, again, on that brink of being able to get recruited, or they were noticed at least, if they're able to go back for one more year, they might just explode in their high school leagues and their rep leagues and the dual prep, whatever league you're playing in. And you might get noticed now, and you'll get that offer letter potentially.
Another year of experience, another year to get stronger, better marks. If you dedicate yourself, obviously, like you said, you could get noticed by 1 or 2 schools. last year, coming into this year, defer, go back. You're right. It could be, I think, regardless, whether it's in January or next September, the talent level is going to be some of the best the country's ever seen because everybody should be healthy. Knock on wood. No freak accidents happen. Hopefully everybody's eligible academic-wise. You have everybody playing full strength. The game itself is going to be fantastic as a fan. And as a player, you want to beat the best players at their best. The competition level is going to be through the roof.
It's only going to benefit. I mean, at the same time, I don't think there's so much light on the youth sport league. Sometimes I feel like the CCAA doesn't get enough recognition for the type of athletes that come in and are playing, because there are just so many phenomenal student athletes that are playing across Canada in the college system, and they're under the radar again. I've played with some. I've seen some play on both the men's and the women's side of it. It's just, I think that there's some girls and guys that could have played at the youth sport level, but they decided to go the college route instead. Because of that, they're limited on visibility.
I could go on that for hours. I think the entire university and college in Canada is under the radar, underrated, undercovered, whatever. But you even see, like, I'll use Griffin and Jess again, one of the better backcourt duos in the OCAA. They're even overlooked in their own league. I think people focus on your traditional, your Fanshawe, your Humbers, your Sheridans, your top 3-4 teams every year, and that's it. There's so many teams, so many players that can go play 4 or 5 years, like you said, and just fly under the radar and don't get the light. I could go on that for hours and hours, but that's for
another night.
That's another night, another day when there's more to drink at my disposal as well. Looking at next year and what hopefully is a season, what excites you about the future of Redeemer women's basketball?
Well, for one, we're looking at a potential full roster of double digits.
That's a plus.
It could be good, it could be bad, who knows? But to be able to get a full practice in and scrimmage together with the 12, 13, 14 girls, I mean, we're just excited. We're going to have some numbers and limit some minutes a little slightly. So you're not playing 40, you're down to that 32 minutes a game. I think that'll help with the injury side of things for sure. Obviously, it's hard not to get excited for some key returning players like Kat, Jess, Griff, Lucy, Jess Whittel. Those girls that are going to be playing a very, very big part in the success of the program next year. And then you throw in some girls coming in. Sometimes you might actually, right now, we don't know a whole lot about some of them because we are not able to watch them play in the rep program. But then you throw in a Maddie Cahoon into the mix, coming off of 4-year rugby career at MAC and coming to the ed program. She's willing to play basketball and coming back to her roots in the basketball. So to have a player like her that's just going to be tough as nails and that grit kind of bug you all the way down the court sort of defensive role, that's definitely a big part of our excitement as well, to have someone else that can do that for us.
Fits right into the Redeemer grit and leave it all on the floor, hustle 40 minutes, hopefully not if you guys have a full roster. You guys want to know what to do with yourselves on the bench. If you have more than 2 or 3 girls to walk past for subs, that's going to be – there's another half of the bench I don't think you've ever seen before. This will be nice.
it'll be nice to have those seats filled for sure.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
The big thing is again, just you think of some players that are those girls coming back, and we're still trying to figure out, and we're still obviously contacting and trying to recruit at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Still waiting on another transfer coming into the ed program with 2 years left. I'm not going to say any names since she hasn't technically accepted at Redeemer yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting for her to accept her offer. But if we can get her coming from the U Sport level as well, I think that's going to be a big plus for us, just experienced, and to fill that hole for some of the girls that are gone.
I think it's looking at the recruits where you had Maddie and Karen, I believe her name is, if I pronounce that wrong, to break, I think it is. So the two so far, with the slew you guys have coming back of talent, and having those girls, like you said before, take on bigger roles last year that they probably didn't think they would be in, build off that momentum and try to carry that forward and hopefully stay healthy. Knock on wood. So, I mean, you guys have taken your bumps for 2 years. You're due for a healthy, full strength year. Hopefully this is that year. And
I'm hoping so. And to jump off of that, Karen, she is one of those players that is going to be coming to Redeemer, and she's going to be able to play a big role for us.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal player from what we've seen.
Yep.
She fits that exactly what we want to bring into the program and what we're trying to build at Redeemer, with that sense of family atmosphere in our team. And she's tough as nails. She can play, and we're really excited that she decided to come to Redeemer.
You see up and down the roster too, that's one of the things that you see a lot too, is the toughness. And some of the girls play with a little bit of extra edge, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They kind of ride that line between it all, kind of the balance, and it's a tough team. And to me, honestly, it's a real shame that the injuries piled up the last few years the way they did, because I think it's overshadowed a lot of the good that you guys have had come through, whether it's Julia Pavlik, the addition of Griff and Jess this year, the emergence of Jess, Wattel, and Kat. I think it's the injuries have kind of overshadowed a lot of the good. You look a lot deeper, there's a ton to build on and a ton of positives for the future, for sure.
We're just hoping that they're doing their part, just as coaches are doing ours right now, and just be a continuous learner and taking those workouts that we're sending them serious. If you don't do the work now,
that's true.
It's tough come January. Expect not even September now.
Yeah, it'll show. You'll see I think there'll be a big gap. You'll have the people that did the work in the summer, and then there's going to be people that didn't. I don't know if there'll be anything in the middle. It's either you worked or you didn't. And I think there'll be a gap for sure. But this time you just kind of hope, and it's that trust again. The trust you built, hopefully they're putting in the work to run through that wall again next year. And that's all you can hope for at this point.
And I definitely hope my girls watch this, because they know, if they know me, and I hope they do, I am very much one of those coaches that I look for those hard workers.
Yeah.
Those defensive-minded players. Those are my favorite type of players. Those ones that will go through the wall, take a charge for you. And I think a lot of that has to do with, it was my style of play.
Okay.
When I was playing at Mohawk, I was never the best player on the team, I can guarantee it, especially with some of those guys I had around me. But you find your role that fits, and you find the way to help your team. And if stepping up and sacrificing your body is the way to do it, you are that much higher in my book for that effort.
Find your role, do it well. Don't leave anything on the bench, leave it all on the floor. And everybody loves players who play with that toughness. Like it's infectious. You see one person do it, whether it's setting the screen or taking a charge, that radiates through the entire roster, whether it's 7, 8, 9 girls or 15, 16. That gets everybody excited.
It's even getting more exciting, especially with the injuries that we had watching Griff and Toby specifically with their injuries in the second semester, the energy they had on the bench and never giving up on their teammates, talking to them during timeouts, giving them some good feedback. It's just, those are the girls that, really bought into your system and trust you as a coach, because they're still jumping up and down with torn ACL and a broken foot, and they're just going nuts when one of their teammates does something big.
Jumping would be the last thing I would do if I had any of those things. I don't jump now to begin with, but if I had any injuries, I'd be on the bench. I'll clap like no tomorrow, but there's no way in hell I'm jumping.
Yeah, you can't tell that to Griff. She's definitely a special one, and just one of those players that you want to have around.
100%. If you could have maybe like 5 or 6 of her, I'd be laughing.
If there's more out there, you're welcome at Redeemer any
Come to
day.
Redeemer. Yeah.
Please.
Listen to the start. University degrees at the college level, small class sizes. You're more than welcome. Come on down.
100%.
You kind of already touched on it. One of the questions that came in online, what do you look for in a player when you're recruiting?
I did touch on a little bit of that as we were speaking. Again, it's not necessarily you're the best player on your team. What a lot of coaches, I think, will look for, obviously, girls or guys that can play. Right? If you can't play, it's a little hard to even notice.
Sure.
But what's your attitude like on the bench? What's your attitude like when something bad happens on the court? Are you one of those players that are putting your head down after you turn the ball over and walking back on defense? Or are you the first one back and creating a play on defense or the mistake you made? So it's a lot of body language. At least I look at. If you have some talent, you're going to get noticed. But the thing that you can't teach is that hustle, that willingness to make up for something that didn't go so well, even if it's not your mistake. If you're going to hang your head down and be negative towards your teammates, no coach really wants that on their team. So definitely said, if you're willing to step up and take care of your own business and your role and you can play it well, there's definitely a spot for you on any team across Canada. It's just you got to get the right coach to see you that's looking for you.
It's a lot of the stuff that you can't teach. You can teach jumpers, you can teach fundamentals, you can teach whatever. You can't teach the attitude, can't teach the drive to want to be successful. You can't teach positive attitude. It's a lot of the stuff that you can't teach that really helps you stand out. Because if you can play, people will find you that way. But like you said, if you're a negative attitude or you heads down, you make a bad play, you're not hustling back, that stuff sticks out like a sore thumb, and coaches see that right away.
And that kind of ties into one of the new philosophies we're kind of bringing in. So we want all our players to think when something happens or when they're in the gym at any time, are you being a good leader or are you being a good teammate? If you can't say yes to either one of those, then you're doing something wrong. So you're not always going to lead, or you'll lead in different ways. You don't have to be vocal. You lead by your play. If you're being a good teammate, are you working hard at practice? Are you diving for that loose ball? If there's a lot of things that you can find your spot on teams just by being a good teammate. You don't have to always lead. And especially in your first couple of years, you're still trying to find yourself. So being a good teammate is definitely one of the things that I know I look for when I'm watching high school games and the rep program games.
Yeah, because it's a sign that you've bought in to what's going on. If you're kind of at the end of the bench, you're kind of staring off into the crowd, you're not really involved, you're kind of just there. You're not leading, you're not being a good teammate, you're just kind of in your own little world. And we all zone out from time to time, it happens. But if you're not clapping, you're not involved or invested, there's something missing. for sure. One that came from someone on the team.
Oh,
What is the best part of coaching at a smaller school with a smaller program?
this came from someone on my team.
Yes. I will not say who. Yes.
No, I don't want you to.
Good.
It's a great question. So for everyone else watching, this was my first coaching opportunity
Okay.
in general.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I did a lot of camps and everything, but that's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Something I love about coaching at this school and at Redeemer is obviously that family-like atmosphere that you walk through that school and they know you. They know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
They walk down. I could be wearing just a normal t-shirt, shorts, pair of jeans,
Mm-hmm.
and they know I'm a coach.
Yep.
So that, and again, it's something that you might not get at the bigger schools.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing I really enjoy, obviously, is the respect factor
Mm-hmm.
that you get from the other athletes. So in particular, you walk into the gym after the guys are practicing, they're all asking how your day is, how your family's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, something that might not necessarily happen elsewhere, it happens at Redeemer. It's natural. And the encouragement that you get from the athletic department, the teachers that are coming to watch the games, all the faculty and staff there, they're there to support you in every sense. And I think that it should be said that Redeemer just has one of those family-like atmospheres from the top where the president goes all the way down to the students. It just trickles down right through, and it's fantastic to see.
From any experience I've had with Redeemer, whether it's with this now in the podcast or conversations with Jesse or Jamie or Peter, everything about Redeemer has been first class. And you see it with the athletes after the game, like at the home game, everybody's sticking around, talking to whoever in the community, just kind of asking how everybody is, just keeping that conversation and the relationship building, and like everything has just been first class. So that, not surprised in the slightest that you said, like, just the atmosphere, the family, like just the entire atmosphere as a whole. Like you see it firsthand. And from an outside perspective, first class all around. And for you, this one's for me a little bit, with having you and Jesse. Nobody else is on the staff, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
We actually did add a former player and now the graduate, Alex Webb.
Okay.
She was on the team in our first year. She just graduated from the ed program, and we're bringing her on staff.
Okay. So now 3, it's still a smaller staff. How key is communication for you guys in a game?
It takes a huge toll if there is no communication. The one thing I will definitely say, Jesse is a communicator. We talk quite often outside of the gym. We'll be texting. We've done phone calls. Now recently, a lot of Zoom meetings on what we're doing and what we're trying to build, and even the summer plans right now going on. But Jesse, he's very big on communication as well, and the trust factor. It's kind of nice that we started at the same time. So, I mean, we are learning together and still going to be learning throughout, but it does play a big role in the success during a game in terms of management of even fouls, let's say. It's very, very hard or very easy, I should say, to get wrapped up in things that are going on and for things to slip under the cracks. So there's times where I actually had to apologize for it the one time, even though he said it was fine. He called a timeout I found out later, is just for the reason to stop the run. And I just grabbed his clipboard and he just let me run with it. And
Sweet.
I apologized after the game, and I was like, I'm sorry if I kind of stepped on toes.
Uh-huh.
It's just I saw what was going on, and I was like, they needed to know this sort of thing. So I just kind of in the moment grabbed him. He's just like, no, go for it. If there's something you're finding and you're seeing, go for it. So with that, they said Jesse's he's very supportive with me on staff. Just trusts everybody from me right down to our 9th player, hopefully 13 this year. But it's with the communication is definitely a big thing. And if we're not communicating, we're definitely going to miss something, and our success isn't going to be quite there.
I was going to ask it before. It slipped my mind until now. You mentioned that Redeemer was your first coaching opportunity. Was it always a goal for you to get into coaching?
I'll be honest, not really.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Said I played 4 years at Mohawk.
Yeah.
The 4 years after, of course, that they won that national championship.
Yeah.
So I went to nationals a couple times, which was fantastic. So I had the experience as a player. And what not a lot of people will know is that I actually applied for the head coaching job, the same one that Jesse did at Redeemer. So it was one of those things a couple years later. I was like, you know what, maybe this is something I want to do. I love being a guest speaker at camps in the summer. So I love teaching. So it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I thought I had a good interview and got an email after from the athletic director saying who they hired. And I was like, that's fantastic. Like, it's amazing. Congratulations on hiring your head coach.
Yep.
Not that I knew that I was going to receive another email the next day from Jesse asking to go for a coffee. So I was like, okay.
Sweet.
Yep. So we spoke for about a good hour or so.
Yeah.
And just we talked about the interview a little bit and what we thought about it. He asked kind of what I would have thought or brought into it if I was a successful candidate. He went on, he said, this is what I'm trying to bring. And we were actually on the same path, in the same mindset.
Okay.
So at the end of that hour and a bit, he's like, you know, it could be weird, but how do you feel about joining the staff?
Yeah.
Let's do it. And I just said, let's do this. Let's go. Let's run with it. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't get the opportunity even to be an assistant coach for your first coaching job every day.
That's true.
And
that's also true.
I can definitely tell you that I've learned a lot in the last 2 years from the experience alone and from Jesse in terms of what I see myself and the type of coach that I think I can be underneath as his assistant. And if it's in the cards, who knows? But you do learn a lot. Yeah. And if you don't have that positive mindset, you know, I don't think his and my relationship right now would be where it's at if I didn't have a positive outlook on it and said, let's give it a go.
It's funny how the world works in mysterious ways. Looking back to where it was to where you are now, you go from the email saying they hired someone else to the next day, let's go for coffee. And now 2 years in, here you guys are building a program at Redeemer that hopefully has double-digit players this year and everybody stays healthy. It's weird. Everything comes full circle. It just has its own way of working out.
It does, and I definitely don't regret any part of the process that's happened. I'm glad that I got to speak with Jesse that day, and I'm glad that he felt that I was a good fit to join his staff. Because now he's not just a colleague and a head coach. We have that friendship and that family atmosphere. Yeah. I love spending time with his family. He loves spending time with mine. It's great. It's been a roller coaster of a ride the last 2 years.
Yeah,
but that's life. Yeah. If it's not a roller coaster, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. If it's just kind of smooth sailing the whole way through, you're missing a lot along the way. You're not learning a whole lot. and it's not that exciting. It's just kind of even keel. You're doing something wrong if your life is just flat. Last one for you. 1/3 of your roster last year had the same last name. What was it like coaching Toby, Sam, Lucy, all from the same Brinkman family?
So I've had, obviously, having Toby and Lucy for 2 years together. That was something special to see the way they interacted on and off the court.
Yep.
Obviously, very similar at times, and then others, their personalities are definitely different.
Yeah.
And then you bring in Sam, and so which one is she going to be more like? Is she going to be more a Toby or is she a Lucy? Who knows? And she just came in, and you look at all three of them, it's like, yeah, you're related. You are. It's fantastic, though. I mean, how many people get the opportunity to play with, they may be one sibling, but what about two?
Yeah.
You got to play a sport at the next level in college, university, with two of your siblings.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Just the thought of that alone, it's fantastic. It's great. I don't think anything negative of it. I think it's, if anything, good on them for not killing each other at all throughout the year. I mean, you already had spent 17 years of your lives together, and now you're asking for more.
Yeah, and it's one thing to play, like growing up, like house league or rec ball with siblings, 2 or 3, let alone collegiate basketball with 2 of your siblings. Like you're right. I don't think many people can say they played with 1, let alone 2 siblings. To me, that'd be fun. It'd be entertaining to see the shenanigans that go on. Like if 2 gang up on one day, or the jokes that they have, like the inside jokes. I can only imagine the family, like having all 3 of them there, like you said, spending your whole life together. And now, hey, let's go to the same school and play on the same basketball team because we don't spend enough time together. Like, if I was them, I'd want to get as far away as I could from siblings.
Apparently, the Brinkmans, they're clearly a very close family.
It's that family atmosphere.
It is, and even her family or their family, I should say, not just one of them. Them coming out to games, driving all the way down from Ottawa, meeting her parents. They're just fantastic people all the way around, and that's the one thing I can say about all our athletes. Their families are absolutely amazing, supportive, and it's great to see that as well. Besides the academic and the athletics part of it, the personal lives of our student athletes is very important to us as well. So to see where they come from and who raised them, it's really nice to see that.
Yeah. That family atmosphere radiates top to bottom. It's evident. You can see it all the way through Redeemer, from academics to athletics, the community. It's just one big family, one big extended family. You have your 800, 900 students, and then it just branches off from there, and it's just one big happy family. Most days. I'm sure there's days where they're not happy, but most part you do what you can.
Yep. And I think for the most part, I think we're doing all right.
Yep.
So
day by day.
Definitely have nothing negative or wouldn't. Yeah, it's hard not to enjoy your time at Redeemer. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Was there anything else we missed that you wanted to add on the program, what you guys are building, the academic side, anything in general that we missed that you want to shed some more light on?
In terms of what we're trying to build, everyone wants to build a winning program. That's the easiest thing that any coach can say. And would I be wrong if I said that's what we are trying to build? Of course not. That we want to win. Everybody wants to win. But the other thing that we're trying to build is that sense of family. And you're getting trusted. There, you have, some athletes are going to schools thousands of miles away from their families.
Yep.
And those parents are now trusting you with their kid. So it's one of those things where, as a coach, you're adopting 10, 11, 12 girls just because they're on your team. And it's something that we take serious. Like I said, we are very much invested in them as students, as athletes. Their well-being are so important to us that I can honestly say that we genuinely care so much about our student athletes that they are like our own daughters and family. So that's something that we are going to continue to obviously build around and make sure at the end of the day that their careers in basketball are obviously good memories to hold. But at the end of year 4 or 5 years, we want to make sure that we have graduates that we have helped influence them in a positive way so that they can be the leaders of tomorrow. And it sounds cheesy, but it is what we are trying to do. And that's just the reality of it. If you don't invest, you're investing all this time in practice and traveling in the games already. So invest a little more time and make those next graduates successful.
It's fair. It's that family atmosphere. And like you said, you're adopting these girls who come from who knows where. And it's all one big family. And Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to build a winning program overnight. It doesn't happen unless you're Carleton and just reload every year. It doesn't happen. So building that relationship, building that trust, that atmosphere, the family atmosphere, it all helps. And if you win, great. If not, it's about building, like you said, leaders for tomorrow, better citizens in society when they're done, whether it's basketball, whatever. And like you said, student athlete, not athlete student. We are recording this June 20th, so Saturday. This comes out June 22nd, which is Monday. In between is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to you. I know you have a young guy at home, so I'd be a terrible person if I didn't work that in there as well. So happy Father's Day to you. I know is he one, just over one, just under one?
Just turned one at the May long weekend.
Okay, so second Father's Day for you.
Yes.
How has the first year been with hopefully a future Royal or Mountaineer down the road?
If he
chooses that,
both his parents' footsteps, he'll be a Mountaineer.
Okay.
Where we had met. My wife was on the volleyball team at Mohawk while I was there.
Okay.
But it's been it's that roller coaster. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll be honest. I'm just learning on the fly. This is my first kid, so it's a learning curve, but it is definitely one of those things that you think about it when you're kind of getting ready to get married and everything, or you're dating someone even. And then all of a sudden this child is born. And like I said, you don't know what to do half the time. You just kind of wing it. And it works. So then you wake up in the morning and coming down, my wife gets up with him in the morning. I get the extra hour of sleep.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
You're coming down those stairs and he knows exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And just the little smile on your child's face as you're coming down.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
So it's they said hopefully if he's anything like his parents, he could be going to Mohawk, he could be a Mountaineer.
Yeah.
It's a little too, unless he's going to be some crazy genius athletic kid right off the hop. I think we got another 16, 17 years to think about that one. He can go wherever he's got to go in his life.
Yeah.
Whatever steps he needs to.
A lot of years ahead of him. We won't make you think about it now. Just enjoy every minute as it comes, because from what I'm told, they go quick.
The first year, definitely. I always tell my wife, and she'll hate me if it actually happens. I said, he's just going to be a place kicker. He's going to play football, and he's going to kick a ball, eight
They
times a game and make $1 million a year.
They make
and
good
he's
money.
going to take care of us.
Yeah.
But she's not a football fan, so it probably won't happen.
Okay. You a big football guy then, I take it?
I like sports.
Okay. Do you have a team?
Yeah. A few years ago, it was more to brag about. I'm an Eagles fan.
Okay. That's not to me, it's if anybody says the Pats, I don't care if Brady's gone. You can't do the Pats, can't do the Bucks anymore because I can't stand Brady. It's a personal thing.
Every Pats fan's a Bucks fan now. Let's be serious.
That's true. Like the Pats bandwagon is empty. Everybody is now all of a sudden a Tampa Bay fan. They've been a Tampa Bay fan for years, they'll tell you. No.
Just under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar Tampa fan, in the closet Tampa fan for who knows how long, and then Brady's here. Oh, coincidence. Look at that. No, I can't do it. Can't do it. But Pat, I want to thank you for doing this. It was a lot of fun to kind of hear more about Redeemer. I know I didn't know as much about the academic side as I probably should have. So it was a ton of fun, and I wish you guys all the best, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Really appreciate the opportunity to shine the light on Redeemer as an institution and on the athletic side of things.
Absolutely.
Yes, anytime you want to have me on, I'll be more than happy to talk more.
We'll get Jesse or some of the girls on to see what fun we can have with that.